Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the ASMG Back Pass as we get to the end of the Georgia Premier Division in the UPSL. A lot has happened this season. It's been sort of volatile schedule wise. We've seen a lot of games moved around, a lot of teams going through a lot of different dramas that we'll touch on as we get into this episode. But it's getting to the business part of the season as we find out who's going to win the zones, who's going to be in the playoffs, and who's going down in the relegation races. So sit back and relax, and I'll see if I can unravel a lot of the mysteries that are going on and some of the controversies and some of the things to look forward to as we get to the match week 10, the final weekend that will confirm everything for us. We'll set it all up for you here on ASMG's Back Pass. So we'll start by going into the results from the past week and a half. We waited a little while to get this episode out. We usually get it out on Wednesday, but we had some midweek games that we wanted to include in the discussion because they had such a significance to what was happening in both of the zone competitions. So here we are Friday, and we want to review pretty much a glut of games that occurred. So we'll get right into it, starting in zone number 1. And this is one of the makeup games Kalonji Pro Profile needed to have. This was a game on ASMG TV, a game they played against Georgia Revolution at Shiloh. And Kalonji made up that a game with a victory 3-1 against one of their rivals for the zone. Great performance from Kalonji Pro Profile, who have a lot of their regulars back now. And so it's going to be something that they look at and try to focus on for the rest of the season. They've had their hiccups during the season, and now they're trying to play a little catch up with Atletico Buford at this point. And they get one of the games back with a good victory over Georgia Revolution. Georgia Revolution kind of lost the initiative here as far as the zone title, but they still were fighting for a playoff spot to solidify themselves there. This was a sort of a setback in that operation, but as we will see from the other results, it would not hurt them as much as it could have. And so Georgia Revolution fall to Kalonji Pro Profile 3-1 in this encounter. So we'll get to the next game. It's another Kalonji Pro Profile game that was going to be made up. This was originally rescheduled due to Kalonji Pro Profile's involvement in the U.S. Open Cup. They were scheduled by USSF to play Mint Hill FC. They did play that game. They defeated Mint Hill, a team out of the Mid-Atlantic division of the UPSL, beat them 4-0. In a game that allows Kalonji to now be on the way to the 4th round of the qualifiers. This is the last qualifying round of the U.S. Open Cup. They're going to play Potros FC on November the 23rd. I believe that game will be at 7 p.m. at Shiloh. So there's going to be a big game there between two of the juggernauts from our conference. However, with this game, Georgia Athletic were not properly notified. This is not the fault of Georgia Athletic. Neither is it the fault of Kalonji Pro Profile. It was a fault of the league officials involved with rescheduling. And so Georgia Athletic and the referees were inconvenienced in this match. However, the league made arrangements for the game to be rescheduled. The league was going to take care of all the facilities and everything involved in it. However, Georgia Athletic has chosen to voluntarily forfeit the game. I cannot explain that decision by Georgia Athletic, but it is something that they wanted to do. Great efforts were made to avert the forfeit. This is the only forfeit we've had in this conference this season, and in my opinion, it wasn't really necessary because as when we get to the end of the results, we'll get into the league standings. And when you look at that, you'll see the massive consideration that this had for not only the relegation race, but also the struggle against relegation, but also in the league title. Because Kalonji Pro Profile, when the forfeit is done, Pro Profile, the forfeit winner gets a 3-0 victory, but the loser is deducted 3 points. And so Georgia Athletic, who were on 3 points, are deducted 3 points. They go to zero. Kalanji per profile, who are chasing Atletico Buford, are given 3 points, which puts them on even points with Atletico Buford, who I'm sure Atletico Buford are not going to appreciate the method in which that was done. But again, Kalanji Pro Profile also wanted to play this game. They even offered their own facility and cover all expenses themselves to get the game in, but it was to no avail. Georgia Athletic players themselves voted not to play the game, and I don't have an explanation for that. And like I said before, efforts were made to avert this. They were not successful. The forfeit has been made official, and so we just have to go on from there. And for me personally, I think that since my association with the UPSL, this is probably one of the more unpleasant situations I've ever been involved in. And I think I'm more like a lot of the fans who watch the game that want to see these games go on. And so, decisions have been made. The forfeit has been confirmed. And so we basically just have to go on from there and see where the competition is going. So we have a few other games that we're going to get into, and we'll look at the next round in zone number 1. And next up, of course, we have Atletico Buford, who we were just discussing. They needed to get a result this past week. This was before the forfeit ruling from the other game. They're looking to secure a zone title in their first ever try of in the Premier Division. This is a team that was in Division One last season. They competed in the Division One playoff final where they lost to Scenic City, who plays in Zone 2. And they lost that. And ordinarily, that would have meant for them to stay in Division One. However, we did have the realignment and expansion of the division here in the Premier, which allowed them to be chosen, and it was offered for them to come in and play in Premier based on that expansion, and they took it. And they've taken full advantage of that, being able to vie for a championship in their first ever foray into the Premier. And so it's quite a story when you think about it. And it's despite the things that are going on around them, they continue to perform on the field and get the results that they need. They had a few hiccups during the season, nothing serious enough to take them off the summit. So this is a great result for them. A 6-1 over FC Columbus Elite, who also have done well since coming into the Premier this season. So really good result for Atletico. And as we get into the other results, you'll see how significant this is. And of course, we got Kalanji per profile again playing. They're involved in a little bit of congestion themselves in their schedule, but a good 6-1 victory over Pachuca, Georgia. Heavy win for them as they look to get themselves into a rhythm for the playoffs. But they're also at this point challenging for the zone title, as we have discussed. And so Thierry Jules back in the picture for Kalanji per profile. He's missed a few games. But he's back up front in attacking mode, got on the score sheet, along with a number of different youngsters in the squad who've returned back to play regularly for Kalanji per profile, which is going to be important as they get into the playoffs to strengthen themselves as the intensity levels increase as we get to the end of this regular season and start the division playoffs, which start on the 22nd and 23rd of this month. And we'll get down to the midweek matchup between Georgia Revolution and Atletico Buford. And this is a significant result because Atletico dropped points. This opens the door for Kalanji per profile because this is Atletico's last game of the season. They have a bye on the last weekend. And so they're finished with the regular season. Absolutely in the playoff picture, of course. They've confirmed playoffs. But the zone title is still up for grabs right now because with this dropping points, it gives Kalanji, with the games in hand, the initiative to get something out of the season as far as a zone championship. Georgia Revolution, got an important point because getting that point put them into a position where they can't be reached as far as a playoff spot. So they've confirmed their playoff spot with this draw with Atletico. So a pretty significant result here for both teams, and we'll have to see how that plays out as we get into the other games coming up in the match week 10 of the season, the last weekend of competition. So that's it for zone 1, and we'll have to get into zone 2 next. And we have a lot of games to go through with zone 2, quite a few here. I think 8 over the past week and a half that we'll cover. We'll start and touch on each one of these and the significance of them. Portros FC away to Scenic City there in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and came out with a victory, 3-2. Again, a closely fought game. Portros has been playing close games, but getting the victories that they need, and it just shows the consistency that they continue to have in this division. And Scenic City, who have been very impressive, they're the Division One playoff champions. Came into the season. I think a lot of people would have been saying that survival would have been a success, but they've got themselves into a playoff spot, and so. It's quite the story for Scenic City. It's something that I think ASMG TV will want to investigate a little bit more behind the scenes as we get into the playoff picture here at the end of the season. So great victory for Portros FC, who stay just winning week after week. No losses, not even any draws. So they remain the Invincibles as we get into match week 10 coming up. Another game that with a huge amount of significance is North Georgia United against FC Birmingham. These are two teams that are fighting relegation, and they're right there with each other, tied on points at the time of this game. North Georgia United coming out ahead with a 2-1 victory, which means they pull themselves out of the relegation space for just now. And FC Birmingham gets sucked down into the relegation space. And so that is a significant result for North Georgia United. And it's interesting, just like Portros and Scenic City, these are two teams that are also doing rescheduled games against each other. These are North Georgia and Birmingham play each other twice in the season, and they play them back to back. Once at Riverbend, this game was at Riverbend for North Georgia's home game, and then the other one's going to be at Carver for FC Birmingham a couple of days later, and we'll get into that in a moment. But a great victory for North Georgia United as they get into the critical parts for them for survival. And then another team that is now really looking at the possibility of relegation is Dalton United FC. They fell to LSA Norcross Pro, who are looking to get a home field advantage in the playoffs by continuing to get results. This was an important result for them as they defeated them 3-2. But Dalton United are in a little bit of danger as well. And we'll get into the standings and you'll see how. But they could get dragged down into that mire depending on the results of both FC Birmingham and North Georgia United as we get into these final couple of games in the end of the season here. So something to keep an eye on there. Dalton United, you wouldn't have expected them to be in danger of relegation when you consider the history they've had in the UPSL, always challenging for a division title. But unfortunately for them this season, it's been an off year. And so right now they're just trying to survive and get on to the next round. And then, of course, the rubber match, FC Birmingham losing the first match against North Georgia United. A couple of days later, they win 3-2. Terrell Price with a hat trick, and really does the Birmingham faithful a lot of good by getting this result, which flip-flops them right back out of the relegation zone, puts North Georgia United back into the relegation zone. So it's going back and forth. So, and even the head-to-head now is even. And so you're looking at goal difference is going to be possibly coming into play with this one, and FC Birmingham have the better goal difference by 2 goals. And so we'll get into that in the standings as well. And so, again, you still have 3 teams that are in danger of the drop. And these final results are going to be very important for each one of these teams. And so next up, we have the rubber match for Portros and Scenic City. And this is again, we talked about in the set pieces with Coach Ruiz from Portros FC, the strategy behind dealing with fixture congestion. Here they're playing the same team for the second time in 3 days, and they've had a glut of games rather, at the end of the season here to challenge them to stay in peak performance. And here they've done it again, another close game, 2-1. But you have to have that strategy of squad rotation. And so what can happen is that you can lose your rhythm when you have to make so many changes in the personnel. You're playing against very good competition who are gunning for you. They want to take points off of you. And so it takes a very special effort from a team like Portros to maintain that excellence and keep going forward. And they've done it again, beating the same team twice, once away and now at home at Marietta High School, 2-1. Nazario Mbamio, a critical goal for him in the Golden Boot race, as he's trying to get individual honors for himself there. And Mark Bernot also, who we spoke to in set pieces, also getting on the score sheet there. But again, we've talked about Scenic City and how well they've done this season. Well worth the position that they're in the league standings and getting that playoff place. So very, very good result for Portros FC as they stay perfect on the season. And we'll see what happens as they get into their final two games coming up, and we'll cover that in just a bit. And then as we go on in Zone 2, Soccer Saves Lives fell heavily to Atlanta United Academy. Atlanta United Academy have come back on strong after a dip in form there. They had a couple of setbacks through the season, but now really looking in postseason in form right now. Soccer Saves Lives had moments of attacking excellence in this game. Did manage to score twice, but really showed some weakness in defense. A little bit unorganized, and against a team that's well coached and organized like Atlanta United, that can be a recipe for disaster. And as it turns out, it was for Soccer Saves Lives at home at Shiloh, losing heavily 6-2. Atlanta United keeping their home field advantage hopes alive with this victory, but they're going to need a little bit more help as they get into the last weekend if they hope to get home field advantage during the playoffs. Next up, of course, is going to be the game where North Georgia United were hosting Portros FC. Portros FC coming out ahead in that match 2-1. Close game there, up there at Riverbend Park in Dalton, Georgia. Portros playing a lot of games in a short period of time with the squad rotation we just mentioned. North Georgia United fighting for survival, trying to get out of the relegation zone, puts an extra incentive into their play. But it wasn't enough on the day as Portros comes away as champions of the division and continue to prepare for the postseason play in the playoffs, but also trying to stay perfect as a record in the Georgia Premier. And since the Premier started, they would be the first team to accomplish this if they're able to do that. So that'll be something we'll be looking at, see if they can accomplish as the Invincibles, as we've tagged them right now. So it's an intriguing story to see if they can make that record happen. So that'll be in that one. And then, of course, there was one more game in Zone 2, SSL hosting LSA Norcross Pro. They had some of the same problems they had against Atlanta United in defense, just not able to do anything with them. Now, I will say that this game was divided into two pieces. The first part was a game that was played at Shiloh Stadium, and it was interrupted at 2-2 during a lightning storm, and the game had to be abandoned. And because they had gotten to 61 minutes in that game, the final 29 minutes would be played in this case at Rock Springs Park. And so they continued the game. LSA Norcross put in 3 goals in that period of time, and really just looked more organized and maybe had a little bit more incentive to play because they're playing for home field advantage. And SSL, who really were already out of the playoff picture. And so their main thing is kind of giving their fringe players a little bit more time and preparing for next season coming up. So LSA Norcross with a good win for them coming up in the to the last week of the regular season as they prepare for the playoffs and trying to get that home field advantage. All right, so we'll get into the zone standings now, and as you see here, zone number one, Atletico Buford in first place with Kalonji per profile in second on 22 points. And again, we'll revisit that situation with the forfeit now to show you exactly what's happened. Georgia Athletic, by deciding to forfeit, they were on 3 points. Forfeit takes those 3 points away as a penalty. And, it also takes away their opportunity to survive because on 3 points with 2 games to go at the time, they could have gotten a total of 9 with 2 victories. And as you see, that would put them ahead of FC Columbus Elite. Now, of course, FC Columbus Elite would have to lose the last game. Their last game is against Kalonji per profile. So the scenario was set up because Georgia Athletic also had to play Kalonji per profile. That's the game that they forfeited on. But if they could have won that game and then won their game against Georgia Impact, they could have survived. And so, again, I don't know the decision methods or process that they had on doing this, and but it took them out. They took themselves out in that situation, and it's one of those things that when you're running a team, you run across things that go against your club. But in my mind, I think you fight. I think you keep going, and you compete. And so throwing up your hands or protesting by forfeiting is a decision that I wouldn't take. But everybody has the freedom to make the decisions they want to. This benefited Kalonji per profile because it put them in at the time a tie with Atletico Buford on 22. Atletico Buford had the draw with Georgia Revolution in midweek, which brought them up to 23, which also opened the door for Kalonji per profile. And so that's the scenario that was caused by this forfeit. Pachuca, Georgia, and Georgia Revolution, they are playing for different positions in third and fourth. They're going to finish third and fourth in the playoffs. And so that's only going to determine who they're going to play in the first round of the playoffs. So 3 and 4 are going to play. The fourth place team is going to play the first place team in zone 2, and the third place team is going to play the second place team in zone 2 in the first round. So it's just a matter of who they're going to play. Depending on where they end up, they could be playing Portros or LSA Norcross, or depending on if Atlanta United can get ahead of LSA, they could be playing them. So still a lot of things that can happen with the playoff picture in the first round. We'll have to see how that is. Georgia Impact safe on 9 points. That would have been their goal in this first season of the Premier, is to survive. They've done that successfully, and now they get ready for the second season in Premier next spring 2026. FC Columbus Elite, they're safe on 7 points with that forfeit as well. That benefited them, where they now can just play out this final game, much like Georgia Impact, preparing for next season. And so that's where we are with zone number 1. So the critical game is going to be Kalonji per profile going down to Otis Spencer to play FC Columbus Elite. Kalonji needs to win that game to be zone champions. A draw and a loss will not do it. If they draw and end up even on points, Atletico has the head-to-head tiebreaker from that 8-3 win from the first game of the season. So that's where we are in zone number 1. And we'll get over to zone number 2, Portros FC, champions of zone number 2 on 24 points. Even if they lose the last 2 games and LSA Norcross win the last game and match them on points at 24, Portros has the head-to-head tiebreaker, and that's the key there. So what they're playing for right now, LSA Norcross is playing for home field advantage, and they have to make sure that they get that with a result because Atlanta United could skip over them if LSA Norcross loses and Atlanta United wins. And so that's where that scenario plays out. Scenic City FC are safe in the playoff spot. And so they, again, much like Georgia Impact coming in, I think the goal would have been survival. They're the Division One champions of the playoff to come up to Premier, and been a very, very successful season. Not only did they survive, they got into the playoffs, and so it's quite the story. It's a story that I think that ASMG TV will want to look to a little bit more deeply. Team playing out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and worth a look and seeing how that team has been built and competes at the highest level in the Georgia Premier. So great congratulations to them to getting in the playoffs. Soccer Saves Lives, unable to really get there, even if the results go positively for them. A tie with Scenic City on points would be broken by the head-to-head that Scenic City holds over them. And so, but a good mid-table finish for SSL. Their number one goal would have been also survival. I think that they've done that. They had the outside chance to the playoff, but it wasn't to be for them this season. We'll have to see what happens. What really is interesting, aside from what's going on with the playoff picture, is the relegation race. And you see here, there's like a top half and a bottom half for the zone number 2. I think the top 4 teams there that are in the playoffs are going in a certain direction, but the bottom 4, that's where it gets very interesting. Soccer Saves Lives has the best opportunity for survival with the games in hand, and of course the tiebreakers that they hold, as well as the goal difference advantage they have. The bottom 3 are the concern, I think. I think that FC Birmingham and North Georgia United are in the biggest danger, but if they can get results and Dalton United can't, Dalton United could go down. And that would have been unheard of to discuss before the season starts. But there's so many scenarios. I'm not going to go into all of them that could see whether it be Soccer Saves Lives, Dalton United, FC Birmingham, or North Georgia United. And again, I think the 3 there are the ones, Dalton United, FC Birmingham, and North Georgia, are the ones in the biggest danger when you consider head-to-head and the games left to play. Soccer Saves Lives does play Dalton United in the closing game for Dalton United, and so, but Soccer Saves Lives also has a game against Portros tonight, and so there's a lot for these teams to battle out to get survival, but so many different scenarios. It's going to be a wild weekend to see what happens and see who goes down. But that's part of the drama of open leagues here in the UPSL, where you go up and down. Each week you have to perform because it can come back and bite you at the end of the season. But that's sort of the picture in the tables. We'll see what the games are that are coming up. In Zone 1, we have 3 games left. As I told you before, Atletico Buford have already finished their season with their 10 games. They're in first place at the moment. But the key game is this first one, right now scheduled at 6 p.m. with FC Columbus hosting Kalanji Pro Profile. That game will be down at Otis Spencer. That game will be on ASMG TV. And it's very, very simple. If Kalanji Pro Profile wins, they win Zone 1. If they lose or draw, Atletico wins Zone 1. That's the long and short of it. Georgia Revolution plays Pachuca, Georgia. And again, this has the significance here is just the placement of 3rd or 4th place. And so that will determine who they play in the first round of the playoffs, which start on November 22nd and 23rd. And so that's the pertinent thing there for Georgia Revolution. Both of those teams are solidly placed in the playoffs. And, of course, the last game of the season, made sort of redundant now that Georgia Athletic chose a forfeit, is they're hosting the Georgia Impact to close out the season. Georgia Impact is safe. Again, this is a game, I guess, for Georgia Impact's point of view, can prepare for next season in the UPSL. And game is 2 o'clock at Discovery High School. So that's going to be Zone One's games coming up. Zone Two, a few more games here. We start with tonight. Portros is going to be hosting Soccer Saves Lives at 8 p.m. Again, the big thing for Portros is can they go perfect through the season? Soccer Saves Lives need to make sure that they're going to be safe with the result if they can get it, but they do have another game on Saturday, November the 15th against Dalton United, away to Dalton. But again, you're talking about back-to-back away games for Soccer Saves Lives. It can get pretty interesting with these results and the relegation entanglements that are going on. But with Dalton United, I think that they're going to have to really work to make sure that they're going to be safe. I think that's the big difference here. Scenic City and North Georgia United. Again, North Georgia United, the relegation facing them, square in the face. They need a result. They have to get a result to get out of the cellar of Zone 2. Otherwise, they'll be playing Division One ball next season. And then, of course, we get on to Sunday. Portros hosting FC Birmingham. FC Birmingham's last game is against the zone champions, and they need to make sure they get a result because you don't know what's going to happen. Well, they'll know by then what they need to do because both North Georgia United and Dalton United would have played the previous day. And so whether they need a draw or a win is going to be very, very clear to them. And then the key one is going to be North Georgia United. If North Georgia United gets a result, FC Birmingham is going to have to get a result against the zone champions. And that's not going to be easy against a team that's invincible at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see what happens here. And here's another cool one. LSA Norcross Pro against Atlanta United, another game that's going to be on ASMG TV. These two teams are playing for a home field advantage. And this is significant here because these facilities for both of these teams are going to be an extra advantage for them. Atlanta United has a very good facility, but LSA Norcross has a pro. LSA Norcross Pro has their own type of facility that fits them well. Much more narrow field than Atlanta United's field, and their team is set up to play on that surface. And so this is going to be an interesting one too to check out on ASMG TV and see what happens for the coming season. But those are going to be the matchups coming up on the weekend and starting tonight. And so it's all going to be decided on the weekend, and we'll do another back pass next week where we go over the results. But the Center Circle podcast, we're going to do a little preview of the upcoming playoffs that are going to be on tap there. And there's some interesting configurations there that are going to be in play. So one thing we also want to touch on is the goal scoring leaders. We're splitting them up into both of the zones. So we're going to have two awards, one for Zone 1 and one for Zone 2. Wilfred Camden out of Georgia Impact is in the lead at 9 goals. Christian Suazo out of Atletico Buford is on 8. And Carlos Chavarria with his hat trick this past week pumps himself up there to the 3rd position on 7 goals. So I think those are going to be your favorites. We have Thierry Jules and Kareem Tamimi out of Pro Profile, who are in 4 and 5. And Johnny Rapallo, another Atletico player up there. And it really shows you the potency of these teams that are able to put these multiple players into the goal scoring leader race. So that's going to be Zone 1. Wilfred Camden, of course, is the favorite right now with a single goal. We'll have to see how this last weekend goes out for each one of these players here. We'll get into Zone 2 right quick. Nazario Mbamio still there in first place on 9 goals. But Terrell Price, again, he had a hat trick this past week, gets himself up into the 2nd spot on 8 goals. And we have a couple of players on 6 and a host of players on 5. But I think those top 2 are the ones you're going to be looking at, battling out. And interestingly enough, they play each other next. So you get to see them go head to head in the same game. So very good game to look forward to for many different reasons on the weekend. So that's going to be the look at the goal scorers there. We're going to look at also, like we always tell everybody, just if you want to learn a little bit more about not just the Georgia Conference, but the UPSL in general, go to upsl.com, upslsoccer.com, and you get the complete picture of all 32 conferences, also the women's division and the youth academies. They're all there, and there's particularly good profile stories on each of the players that are making it up to the professional ranks there. As you see some of the samples flashing on the screen there, and it really shows a developmental aspect of the league, which is the most important part to provide that pathway that these guys have. So check this out, and when you get an opportunity, and of course, and I always tell people, if you want to support your favorite team, go to the fan shop on the upslsoccer.com website, and you can purchase wearables for your favorite team with the team crest and logo on it, whether you want a hoodie or a t-shirt or another wearable that they have available. Portions of these proceeds go to the team, so you'll be supporting your team not only by wearing it, but financially as well. So these are all good ways you can support your team and the league, and we look forward to seeing what happens as this league continues to grow, particularly in the Georgia Conference. So stay tuned with ASMG as we cover these things in more detail. But that'll be all that we have for you this weekend in the ASMG's Back Pass, and we look forward to getting with you again and seeing all the results from this past week and getting with you on the Center Circle podcast to preview the playoffs. So thanks again for watching, and we look forward to getting with you again next weekend. Enjoy the games this weekend.